Ark Beyond Ascension, Part 4. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey. Now it picked up right where we left off in the last episode as we look to depart from Herbivore Island. But there are two catastrophes that did happen immediately after the last episode that you need to be aware of. First, we accidentally grabbed ourselves that explorer note while we're chopping trees, so that was a bit of a waste. We just managed to kill ourselves a shark and a couple more trees, and that was pretty much the extent of that buff, so a whole lot of nothing. And also we got a problem with our PT. I've officially decided we were going to name him Derpidactyl because he's practically useless. After the relog, he still was the same level, so he did not gain the taming buff. And on top of that, I actually cannot even access his inventory, meaning even if I was to try and put a saddle on him, I could not take it back off if we were to find a higher one. So, with that being said, as torture for being a bit derpy, I decided we were going to leave him on Herbivore Island, and we're going to leave him flying because, honestly, he's probably not going to make it very long. And with that, we left Herbivore Island. We set our sights on across the ocean, looking to set up a new form of outpost in the southern part of the island so we can slowly work our way up the coast because the ultimate goal is to make it to the north near Carno Island. But for now, we want to set up an outpost. And with that being said, with a new base comes lots of new farming. It means that I started giving all the trees in the area a real nice hug with my hatchet, giving them the full service tree evacuation notice. That's right, I cleared this place out because we had a base to make. Now, this location that we picked was a bit strategic as it basically was on the very edge of the water, so we did have quick access to the water if we so chose to look for a water tame. Additionally, the entire spot is quite flat, and I mean, look at these views. This is hard to pass up. And so I went through and I began the construction on working on it through the night because I figured exploring a new area while it was dark outside with lots of things that want to eat me and put me in their belly probably was not such a good idea. Now we got about halfway through the building process and we ran out of fiber. Now I needed fiber because these ceilings were actually going to be created out of thatch, as that's always typically a nice little detail for a house on the beach. So we went through and used our moss traps here, Pete, to go through and farm the fiber. But when I gave him commands to farm the fiber, it turns out he was doing a lot more than farming fiber. He has been a bad dog. Very, very bad. He was a dirty, dirty dog. I was so disgusted with Pete's actions that I decided I wasn't even going to ride him home. I was gonna make him walk. I made him take the long way around because I was disappointed with his actions. He just had one job, and I know it's the middle of the night, but we can still all hear and see you, Pete, and that was not okay. So you, sir, can stay in the corner. Once I dealt with Pete and put him in timeout, we finally had everything we needed to build the thatch roof, so we went through and finished the construction on the base. But let me tell you, I honestly was a bit disappointed. Putting a ceiling and a roof here on this base honestly was a bit sad because it looked really, really nice outside. I felt bad. But at the end of the day, it is always nice to stay out of the weather and keep warm or cool, so that was the reason we decided to go with the roof here. And I felt our buddies also needed a roof just in case they got rained on, so I went through and used some of those new building materials, the little half ceilings, to go through and extend this out so they could have a nice little sloped ceiling and have plenty of space to move around. Finally, it was time for exploration, so I hopped on Finny and we set out. Pete was not going to be coming along because he was not only a scaredy dog, but a dirty dog, and we didn't want that kind of distraction while we're out in the field. Now, we did get distracted by an alpha raptor, unfortunately, and this was not on camera, but we got attacked by two raptors just outside the base. Thank goodness we saw them before they saw us. Now, unfortunately, Finny barely made it out alive. His wounds left him to the point of where he could barely walk, so I brought him back to the base and realized that he would not be going on any adventures anytime soon. So we were going to leave him here for his protection so we did not lose another friend. I did not want to have to bury another close friend in this episode. Once Finny was safe at home, I decided I was going to go back out and set on an adventure. I was determined to find myself a flyer, and most likely that would be a PT. Now, no matter where I looked and no matter how much I looked, every single one of them just showed signs of weakness, nothing above a level 50. And being daring, I continued to push further and further inland, hoping that I would find myself a new best friend and not some sort of disaster. Now, as I was checking my surroundings, I did go through and spot that the alpha raptor was actually moving farther inland on the opposite side of shore, headed in the exact same direction as I was, which was quite scary, but knowing that I had to go through and push if I wanted to prevail in this challenge, I continued onward. Immediately after spotting this alpha raptor, I turned around and I noticed that there was two low-level trikes who had very, very little health. It appears as if they had just won a battle, but just barely. So I decided I was going to go through and attack them with my crossbow, but then I got shot flying across the sky. The trike had run up on the rock and still had some fight left in him, and I was terrified as I was not sure if this water would hold sarcos or piranhas, but in the end, I did prevail. And then I chopped him up underwater, not quite sure how those physics worked exactly, but I took him with me, decided we would cook him later, and I was going to need his skin to make myself a saddle to ride our new PT friend that we were looking for. And then along the way, I did go through and find a small little duck, a Hesperornis, so I decided I would go through and kill them, and they managed to drop us an egg, so we took that with us as well. Now, as I set farther and farther inland, I stumbled upon something I wasn't expecting. There was a flying pair of moss chops. Not quite sure how they possess a special power, but they seem to be a lot more powerful and unique than our Pete friend. And then there it was. There was a Lystrosaurus, and immediately memories came flooding back of our dear friend. Whatever we found out here in this wilderness, I vowed we would protect it with our life. And then we stumbled upon something even smaller than a Lystrosaurus. There was a teeny tiny little monkey, and I knew that this guy would be a great addition to the team, as they had the power to go through and take fecal matter and fling it at opposing enemies, causing a slowing ability, which we knew would be a huge help in our journey to complete this challenge. So I decided we were going to go through and follow him around and shove berries down his gullet until he wanted to be our best friend. But as we were finishing up our taming, a huge beast emerged. There was a Therizino who was guarding this monkey and did not want me to take him home as a new best friend. Fortunately, though, he was just going through and patrolling and decided he didn't want to fight me today. So, with that being said, we got ourselves a new friend. We took ourselves the monkey from this forest, and even though it wasn't a flyer, we still felt pretty good because we had ourselves a new companion. Our new little monkey friend crawled up on our back, and I realized that there was not too much more in this area for us at this time, so we started to head back to the base so we could regroup. But then upon heading back, I saw that the sky was dotted with so many different flyers, so I went through and began going through and inspecting every single one, praying and hoping we would find a decent level. And we did not. Every single one of them was weak, all weaker than the original one that we had found. This was Ark's way of challenging us, so went through, and after I could not find anything, noticing that all of these were useless, anytime I saw one land nearby, I decided I was going to kill it in the hopes that one day one would grow up to be big and strong. Once we made our way back to the base, I realized we would need to go through and do some more exploring, so I crawled to the top of the hill, and I decided we would launch down onto the beach on the opposite side. So I took a parachute because walking is for losers, and I decided I was going to fly all the way down with an excellent drop right here next to the water because I was also getting thirsty, and I did not want to pass out here on this beach as there was a whole lot of stuff that would probably want to eat me. Now, much to my surprise, there was even more PTs over here, so surely my luck would turn around and I would find us a magnificent beast that we could ride into the skies. And sadly, we did not. They were all low level. So I decided we would look to the ground, and I found some dillos. Apparently, this was Dillo country as I was attacked by a pack. This was the local Dillo gang. They were here to rule this beach, and I had invaded their territory, and they did not like it. Anytime I turned around, I felt as if I was being attacked by yet another Dillo. After I took out the pack leader, they were all eager to see my demise. Now I watched this Dillo gang change focuses. They were putting their attention on this random dodo crossing the beach, and I felt bad for this dumb little bird as I knew it did not stand a chance. So I went through to try and protect it, but prior to me being able to take them out, they managed to spit poison on the dodo. And at this point I knew he was probably as good as dead, as it was going to cause some mental damage if there was a brain there to damage. But yeah, I just killed him anyway to put out his misery, and I was kind of hungry. And just as I thought I was finished dealing with all the annoying pests like the dillos here on this beach, I was attacked by these massive ants. And they wanted me dead, and I could not imagine the kind of things they would do to me if they knocked me out or ate me. So I went through and I proceeded to shoot and kill every single one of them, knowing that I would be able to harvest their bodies, which I would use to build my PT saddle in the near future if I could ever find a PT that was actually decent enough to build a saddle for. I decided at this point I had gone far enough north, and I knew it was quite the journey back, and I did not want to run out of food or water, so I started to make my way back, and I found a really nice surprise. I found a couple of trilobites, so I went through and I tried to kill them. Now, one of them happened to get stuck in the dirt, and for some reason I just could not farm this guy to save my life, but after spinning a couple of circles and chopping at him, I was able to go through and get his chitin. And then, there it was. I looked out at the water for this random bird, just noticing how beautiful and bright blue it was, and lo and behold, it was a level 150 Pelagornis. Now I knew this was no PT and it was not the fastest flyer, but I had not encountered a max level creature so far in this playthrough, and I knew that this was going to be my key to take to the skies. Now, knowing that I'd want to come through and tame this guy, I needed a plan and I needed some materials. So I started to head back to my base, but I was immediately attacked by a thief. And my favorite part about this entire encounter is he stole a bag from me, I followed him, and then my monkey proceeded to throw crap all over his face. That is right, we do not like thieves. And then I ran out of arrows, so I proceeded to go through and attack him, and I knocked him out. And then I killed him while he was knocked out sleeping. Just a brutal way to die. That is what you get for existing Pegos. Now I had made it back to the base to go through and fix up our crossbow, craft some more arrows, and I was ready to start our journey to tame this Pelagornis. And then we had a Diplo get very, very close to our base, and I knew that if he got any closer that he would go through and attack Finny and Pete while I was away. And I did not want to come back to any dead friends or a base being completely destroyed. Even though he is a gentle giant, he does get angered easily if anything approaches him too closely. So I decided we were gonna have to deal with him. And man, even at a low level, these guys are absolute tanks. They take so many shots, especially with a low level primitive crossbow. But fortunately, he is slow as all molasses, and even though he gave me a couple of good headbutts when I got too close, he did not really pose a threat. Now, he did have a buddy who walked up and thought about attacking me, but fortunately, we were able to deal with these guys and keep our base and our friends safe. Once we had gone through and taken out the Diplo, we had returned to the beach where we had last saw the Pelagornis, and fortunately for us, it was actually headed inland. He was flying up to the beach, so we threw out a nice little bola and knocked him out with no problem whatsoever. Even being a max level, it only takes a couple of headshots, and they go down. Now, as soon as the Pelagornis did go down, I did notice that there was a blue drop nearby, so I went and checked it out, and fortunately, it was not being defended by anything. Found ourselves a couple of narcotics, and lo and behold, a nice new chest plate, which would be awesome considering we were still wearing primitive gear. Now, we did run into a bit of a dilemma and a problem here, and that is Pelagornis will only eat fish meat. Specifically, prime fish meat are what's going to be the most efficient. And I had forgot that my taming had actually only been set to 1.5, meaning they were going to be needing a whole lot of meat, or I was going to be losing a bunch of levels. So I went on a mission to try and find a bunch of megalodons that I could kill, and unfortunately, every single one after I shot it once or twice would return out into the deep ocean and refuse to come back. But at the very edge near my base, I did manage to go through and goad a couple of them to come trying to attack me. Fortunately, only one actually got close enough to actually die, all the rest of them ran off. But I did manage to get myself 3 prime fish meat from him, and I still had 1 prime fish meat left from earlier when I had killed the first megalodon at the start of this video. Since we still had a little bit of time prior to the Pelagornis being ready to go through and consume all this delicious looking fish meat, we stopped back at the base, said hi to Finny, and we completely ignored Pete because of all his dirty deeds. And we checked out the sunset, and what a sight to behold it was. Then, right before leaving, I noticed that Finny actually had dropped an egg below, and it made me wonder if Finny had been frolicking with the local wild parasaurs. Pete had been rubbing off on him. Now we got back to the Pelagornis and proceeded to give it the prime fish meat, but I realized that this prime fish meat was not going to satisfy its appetite, so I gave it a couple of full stacks of regular fish meat, knowing that we would certainly be losing some levels on this guy, but there was not much I can do because every single shark decided to run away from me instead of fighting me. I don't quite understand it. They are all laughing at me. But this guy was quickly waking up as well, so I took the drugs that we had gotten out of that blue drop, these narcotics, and I proceeded to knock him out. And I gave him the best time of his life. Even though it had been such a long time since I had first knocked him out, he was still gonna take forever to go through and eat this fish meat. So I needed a distraction. At first, I stopped and looked at the sky, and what a sight it was. It was awesome. But then we went through and killed a couple of trilobites, and then also we decided I was gonna tame a seagull. Needless to say, the seagull did not want us to tame it, as it was gonna take even longer to tame up than the Pelagornis. So even though we gave it some meat, I decided once we did finish this taming process, we were just going to leave it here because the world is a better place with one less seagull, and hopefully while it's knocked out, something comes along and eats it. Now the Pelagornis was just about to eat its last piece of fish meat to go through and officially become ours, and I realized we still did not have a saddle for this majestic creature. So I went through and checked out my inventory, and it turns out all I needed was fiber, and I was not about to ride Pete or ask him for help as he was being punished. So I went through and did exactly what I said I was never going to have to do again, and I started picking fiber by hand because I refused to go ask Pete for help. And we made the saddle, our birdie tamed up, and we flew on home while Finny followed closely behind. Now when I got back, I decided I was going to need some names for this here monkey and our new blue buddy. And I decided he would be known as Captain Crappy. And then for our bird friend, I decided Blueberry was generic, but it was going to work because he was quite blue, and I did not want to take away from that awesome color hue that it had. Now, it was late, and we had two new best friends. I decided at this point in time, it would be a good place to call it a night. I did not want to go through and do too much exploring, as it was quite dark yet, and who knew what mysterious dangers lied in those woods ahead. So with that being said, we are going to conclude our journey here today while we stare out at the beautiful sky and the obelisk and take all the beauty of this ark in and pretend like everything on this ark does not want to kill us. Alright guys, well if you did enjoy today's video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already.